Welcome to another Rialto Channel Podcast. I'm Francesca Rudkin, and I'm thrilled to welcome the producer, director, and writer of the film Stray, Dustin Feneley. Dustin, did you do anything else on this film that I need to credit you for?
No, that was enough. I should also say that Desiree Armstrong was also the lead producer on the film, but I'm the writer, director, and co-producer, correct? Yeah.
Excellent. Now tell me, look, this film, this extraordinary film, it's set in Central Otago. So why is that the setting for the film? How did Central Otago become this character in a film?
Yeah, well, I've always found that landscape just, I don't know, it's always inspired me and spoke to me. And I always knew that I wanted a winter alpine mountainous landscape, and there's a duality to that landscape in that it's pristine and beautiful and photogenic, but also in winter has like a haunting, melancholic feel to it, which, you know, given the protagonist in the film and the themes of the film really suited it. So I really early on in the script development process, it was always Otago, and we ended up shooting a mixture of Central and North Otago for the film, yeah.
Because I did wonder actually whether the setting or the story came first.
Yeah, well, I always, in my writing, I always start with a sense of place. Like, it's my first feature, but even my short films, of which there's about 6 or 7 of them, I'm very led by atmosphere, tone, landscape, and imagery, more so than plot. So I guess I always start from an imagery, landscape, place. So I guess in a sense you could say that the setting definitely informed the script, and certainly my location scouting in the lead up to the shoot throughout the script development process. Like I would find, say, a timber yard, and then go, okay, this is where Grace is going to look for a job, because it's such an amazing original sawmill from the 1930s that's so rich with production value already. So yeah, like finding real locations would then feed into the screenwriting process.
And you can see that attention to detail across every aspect of this film when you watch it. Yeah, you really can. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, yeah. No, it's definitely a very considered film. Like all the, like for me, the beauty's in the detail, and so I'm very detail orientated, and I would never, I don't know, it seems a very strange concept to just send out a location scout to kind of find some generic locations that somewhat fit the bill of the script and just go, okay, well, that's the best. Like I found all but one of those locations I found myself over like literally 3 years worth of location scouting, because I wanted the film to feel very like handmade in a way. Yeah, it's hard to explain what I mean by that, but that nothing was accidental, I guess.
Grace and John are incredible characters. I watched this film probably about 3 weeks ago, and they are still with me. I still think about them.
Oh, that's really good. I'm pleased to hear that, because that was definitely one of my goals I set myself is to write 2 characters that get under people's skin. Like that was like a goal of mine, is to write and draw characters that get under people's skin, so that you think about them beyond the 100 minutes duration of the film itself. And because, of course, the film ends on a note where not everything is completely tied up and resolved, that's also very intentional, because I think those kind of endings to films are the ones that you can't help but linger and resonate for longer than, the mere duration of the film itself.
I'd like to think, though, that you gave me enough hope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, for me personally, because that's exactly right. It's a really interesting film, Dustin, because the pace is quite gentle, and that's not a negative thing, because for me, I felt it gave me all this time to watch and observe, and I was very curious about who these people were. but I also built a great empathy for them.
Oh, that's really lovely to hear, because I think that, you know, the gentle, slow burn pace is the kind of the intention that, you know, the kind of filmmaker intention behind that was that you're sitting with these characters, and you, I don't know, I'm trying to observe them. What am I trying to say?
But it's those little day-to-day moments. It's sitting, it's watching them, you know, just be on their own or cook their meal, you're just with them. And it really did, as I say, it just sort of, it drew you in, and you created this empathy, because you've got these two characters who've kind of found each other. They're both quite lonely, and they're both quite broken, and they're both trying to step back into the real world in a way. Would that be a good way of describing them?
Absolutely. And absolutely, it was like the notion of taking these two damaged, lost souls that meet, and then through their time together cohabiting in this crib, they slowly get to peel off the layers of their damage, and, you know, they kind of give each other oxygen again. And in terms of the ending, to go back to what we were saying before, definitely, like, I see, although it's an open ending where not everything's there's not complete closure or resolution at the end, I personally feel that there's hope at the end. I mean, that was my intention to suggest that kind of. For me, it was about we leave them with the film ends at a point at which we start to see them taking that first step forward towards recovery or healing or reconciliation. That to me was. So I think that you know, anecdotally, most people that watch the film, they definitely feel that movement and that change, and they find in an otherwise slow burn, open art house film a real sense of satisfaction in being with the characters as they kind of change in that way.
And how good is Kieran Charnock?
Oh man, he is really amazing. He's he's really the real deal. I mean, I auditioned about 200 young guys in the kind of, I guess, 18 to 25-year-old age range. And, I mean, it was quite a long, exhaustive casting process. But when I saw his self-tape, it was like watching, it was the probation officer scene that he did as his self-tape audition. And it was because it was shot on a low-end video grade, it was like watching CCTV footage of a real, you know, parole interview scene. And there was a level of, there's just a level of restraint and truth and authenticity to his performance and quality of performance that was just head and shoulders. Like, he was in another kind of zone, really, I'd call it. He was in another zone performatively than the other actors, even though many other actors were kind of doing really strong auditions. There was just an X factor to him, essentially, that was just undeniable and incredibly exciting as a writer-director to find someone, because I knew that the film was going to be beyond the stunning, you know, South Island locations. I knew that the film would live on, breathe, and the quality of these two performances, because essentially it is a two-hander, and it is a relatively, quote-unquote, small story about, you know, characters rebuilding their lives. There's no kind of intricate, you know, fantastical plot. So to find an actor of that caliber so young in New Zealand was super exciting. And he was so committed to the role in that, you know, he transformed his body, went on this, you know, diet and exercise to kind of change his body. And he worked in a factory, and he met with people in prison and on parole as research for his character. And he has a very method process in that he wanted to be referred to as Jack, his character's name, throughout, you know, rehearsal and shoot the whole time, even on downtime on weekends. So he was just a real pleasure as a filmmaker to meet an actor who's that committed to a role is really, really special. Yeah.
And how did you manage to get Arta Dobritsky to New Zealand to perform?
Yeah, so I saw her in the Dardenne Brothers film Lorna Silence.
Silence, yeah.
And I just was like, wow, what an actor. And then I'd always envisaged that. I thought it would be interesting if her character, she's coming out of psychiatric care, but I thought it would be interesting if there was an extra layer of that she didn't have family or friends to lean on when she comes out, because, she's a relatively recent immigrant to New Zealand. And so I always had the view that it'd be interesting to cast a non-New Zealand actor for the role. And then I was just, I was just dreaming about who I could realistically, on a very modest budget film, who we could potentially get. And she was top of the list for that, realistic dream list, if I guess I'd call it. And I sent her like this letter saying how much I wanted her to do the role and why I think she'd be great. And, fortunately, we probably only had to wait a week or two, and then she said yes. And
fantastic.
So it was it was really, it's great when you get that kind of, that dream cast. It's just like, because, I feel like it's so true, that maxim that 90% of directing is casting, and you can kind of overcomplicate the process a little bit as a director. I think, well, for me, my methodology is very much, you put a lot of thought and energy into casting, and then it's really your job as director to set up the shots, the scenes, the environment for them to do their best work, but not to be too controlling. You've got to so even though the film cinematography-wise has a very controlled and considered mise-en-scène and all that, the performances, I leave the actors to kind of, I'd only make slight adjustments take to take, and when you work with great actors like that, they're giving you things as well. They're giving you ideas and approaches to a scene that you may not have originally thought of as the writer years in development. Yeah.
Dustin, that must have been the fastest yes you got with the process of making this film, because what was it, an 8 to 10 year process?
Yeah, it was a long time. So I guess it's been somewhat exaggerated maybe in the media, but it was, I guess, I had the idea in 2008 and it screened for the first time publicly in 2018. So that's 10 years. But I pretty much, the screenwriting process was in earnest was 2011 to 2014. And then 15, we lost a couple of years just because waiting for trying to get the film financed was difficult, because it's a challenging art house film. And then, we ultimately anchored on this notion of doing it through a handful of private investors, and then principally this big crowdfunding campaign, which we did on Boosted in early 2016. So that was the thing that greenlit us. But yeah, I was living with the film in my head as a little movie in my head for literally 10 years before it screened anywhere.
Would you use crowdfunding again, Dustin?
I probably, to be honest, wouldn't, only in the sense that I feel like I've done that now, and I've
served its purpose.
Yeah, I've relied on the generosity of family, friends, industry peers, and all sorts of people in the general public, and principally in the kind of patrons of the arts community in New Zealand to get that film made. And I think that there's only so many times you can rely on the generosity of strangers or family and friends. So principally, it was incredibly successful. I'm a huge proponent of crowdfunding in general in terms of challenging arts projects to get made. But personally, I guess, there's only so many times you can reach out to people to support you like that.
Hey, what's harder, making a film or distributing it afterwards?
Good question. Both equally, I've done both equally difficult. But, I think that we worked very hard on the release of the film in New Zealand, and it did really well and surpassed a lot of people's expectations at the box office, which was fantastic. And I think making the film was really hard, and I think that, and it's actually, again, it's not so much the creative logistical aspects of making a film that are that difficult. It's getting films greenlit, getting films financed, if they're not on paper an easy sell. You know, you have to think very entrepreneurially, and so I think that's always. I think increasingly it's a challenge. I think, and yeah, distribution was good for us, but I think it's also in general. I'd say though that it's weird because the technology has democratized the filmmaking process. Like you can make films cheaper than you could before.
Yeah.
But then finding, I guess, a really sizable audience to really get that cut through. Right? We live in such a saturated marketplace now to get that real cut through. And I guess ultimately we were fortunate that principally because, you know, we were blessed by very amazing reviews and 5-star reviews. So that was a huge, I mean, we didn't really have to have much of a marketing budget, to be frank, because we just had to keep reminding people about the strong reviews. And then I think that was really why, you know, we had such a great theatrical release in New Zealand. Yeah.
And just to finish off, you ended the film was had its premiere in New Zealand at the New Zealand International Film Festival, but it had its international premiere at the Moscow Film Festival. And I know that it's travelled an awful lot since then as well. But just tell me a little bit about the Moscow Film Festival. What kind of experience was that for you?
Oh, it was an amazing experience. I mean, we none of us had ever been to. A whole group of us went. I think there were about 14 or 15 of us went involved in the making of the film, and you know, Kieran as well. And none of us had been to Russia before. You know, it was the first feature-length film selected for Moscow, which is the second oldest film festival in the world. And you know, it had a huge red carpet with crane cameras and, you know, Russian paparazzi, and it was a really huge event. And I guess we didn't really know what to expect because we couldn't ring like any filmmakers in New Zealand. Go, oh, what's that festival like? You know, so we didn't really know what to how to prepare for it. But you know, they treated us incredibly well. Like it was, you know, there were events and parties and dinners every single night, and cultural tours, and the festival itself was amazing. And you know, the cherry on top was Kieran winning Best Actor, and it was the real doubly special because Natasha Kinski was on the jury and gave Kieran his award and spoke really quite endearing, like lovingly about the film and how moved she was by the film. And, you know, Paris, Texas, she's the lead actress in Paris, Texas, which is in one of my top 10 films of all time. So that was like a real pinch me moment, you know, that was kind of, yeah, it was very surreal, you know, straight out of the gate at our world premiere to have that, you know, Best Actor win and have Natasha talk about the film and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, no, it was definitely a very special experience to kind of start the film's life.
So, Dustin, I'm going to finish off with a question that no director really wants to answer, and that is, do you have another feature film sort of on the go at the moment, formulating in your mind?
I do. I'm writing two at the moment. One's called Southland. It's set in Southland, and it's a psychological thriller. And the other one is based on a true crime, but I'm not allowed to kind of optioning the source material, and I'm not allowed to kind of speak about it.
No, that's okay. You're allowed to keep secrets.
So I've got two. One's completely invented fictional, and the other one's based on a true crime. So, yeah, like I'm busy beavering away writing these two in tandem, and hopefully it won't be too long before I get to make one of them.
Brilliant. We can't wait. And Rialto Channel is thrilled to be playing Stray. Beautiful film. It's screening on Saturday, the 21st of September at 8:30 p.m. Thanks so much, Dustin.
Thank you. See ya.